everyone and welcome to another video. Today I wanted to try something a little bit different and I really wanted to create a new channel intro. I had this kind of idea a couple nights ago and it just kind of came to me while I was trying to sleep, and then I didn't sleep because I was too busy trying to plan this out. But I thought I'd like to take you guys through the process of how I'm going to be creating my new channel intro. Now I've had a couple of them. I think I've done about one every year for the last 3 years since I started the channel, and I can show them all here for you right now. So yeah, I've gone through a lot of different phases. I've started from a blue to like a bluish green to pink, and now I think I'm gonna go back to more of a blue kind of vibe, but still with a little bit of pink involved. I love flowers, so I've kind of decided that this is kind of the new design I want to go for. Now, I thought it would be fun. What I have right now going on is what I did. Hello, Sterling. What I did was I decided to go into, I believe it was the Autodesk sketchbook app. I think that's what I used. And I did like a little recording of myself adding in some like watercolor looks. And then I put some effects where I faded my DIY channel name and my tagline, crafting on a budget. And I thought that that worked out just fine, but I never really felt like it was obvious enough that it was being watercolored on there. So I'm going to try to create more of a live action version of it this time, where I found this design of a wreath on the Canva website. That's normally where I do most of my like thumbnail editing or like channel art sort of vibes. So I got a free wreath off of that. My plan is that I'm going to trace this onto my watercolor paper here. I'm going to watercolor a background in. I'm thinking something blue because I have a lot of green, pink, and yellow in the wreath. And then I have made a transparent version of this sort of image that I'm going to fade in. And yeah, I think that's pretty much how I'm going to do it. And I think I might pick a new song to go with it. I know I've been kind of toying with some different ones from the YouTube music library, but maybe I will find one that I like a little bit better and we can create something awesome together. So first things first, I have printed off the design that I want to use, and I need to make sure that it is perfectly to scale so that when it comes off of this page, it'll like come in right where I need it. So what I've done is I colored in pencil. I've actually decided I'm not going to do the name and the tagline in this particular post. I'm going to let that fade in with the digitized version. So I've covered this entire back part with pencil markings and graphite. And now I'm going to flip it over, and with a pen or a hard sort of utensil, I'm going to go around and trace around all of the images so that it imprints onto the watercolor paper before I start watercoloring the background on. All right, I have the wreath completely copied down. Now I've zoomed in nice and close and as straight as I can so that when I overlay it, it will hopefully take in the same shape as it has here. And I am simply going to start a hyperlapse video. And I am going to put kind of like a diagonal streak of blue wash in the background, probably a brighter blue, just so I can still see the lines here. And then I'm going to go over these lines with a thicker black Sharpie. I think just the regular, not the super Sharpie, the regular fine tip ones that are definitely not the ultra fines, if you know what I mean. You'll see it in the hyperlapse, I'm sure. And that is when I'm going to head over to my computer and then try to create the full intro section in my editing software. So I'm going to start a hyperlapse now, and if I have to speed it up later, I will do that, but hopefully it will go quick enough because I'm not doing anything overly crazy. I don't want this introductory section to be longer than 10 seconds. So yeah, let's see what we can do. Unsurprisingly, this did not go perfectly to plan, but I think I can make it work. I did 3 hyperlapses, one where I painted, one where the paint dried, and one where I did this. So I'm going to paste them together and do a speed through of all of them, and then I guess we'll just see how it turns out. Alright, so I am now at my computer and I am using Movie Maker. Right now I'm just focusing on shrinking it to be about 10 seconds long. I ended up shrinking it to about 7 seconds long before finally moving it over into PowerDirector, which is what I'm currently using. I then noticed that my transparent background got all kinds of messed up. I don't know how else to say that it just started keeping the background in it. It was very, very disappointing. So I ended up having to go into the software and recreate the transparent background in the wreath shape. I also decided that it didn't line up well enough, and I don't even think that the image was centered enough in the shot to look good once I faded everything in. So at this point, I also decided that it would be in my best interest if I were to get an image of some painted on watercolor, or even take it with my own camera, but I was already on the computer, I was already dead set, so I rather got a free image of some watercolor streaks going on in the background, and that is what I'm going to be using to put into my backdrop here. Alright, here I think I've got everything about figured out, and this is the blue that I decided to go with. It's a little bit darker than the one that I had in my video, but I think it'll work out just fine. The big struggle here was actually just angling it the right way so that it would overlay, and I actually at this point had not even cut out the white backdrop from the inside of my wreath yet, so I'm actually going to stop to do that shortly, and then finally finish everything up in the video. Here's where I finally got everything under control. I had taken out the backdrop. I have saved my image right now, and I am popping it back into PowerDirector. And it's easy to tell when it worked because the entire background goes black when it's transparent. So now all I have to do is put everything in the right orientation, facing the same direction that I want it. I've kind of got the blue diagonal and zoomed in quite a bit. Now I just need to kind of pick when I want the wreath to fade in, and with that, when exactly, or where exactly on the page I want to put it. And I fiddled around with this a lot, trying to kind of make it line up perfectly with the one that I had in my live action drawing. Eventually I just kind of came to the conclusion that just wasn't going to happen, and I focused my attention on making sure everything faded in appropriately. So I just scrolled through the transition section, found the right fade, and it took up most of the time on the blue. Originally I was kind of okay with that because I liked how slowly it came in, but I did end up changing that pretty quickly, and I ended up kind of a slower fade into the flowers anyway. I believe I ended up kind of fading them in at about the same speed. For a brief moment here, I actually considered some of the different transition options until I decided that I think the fade was just going to have to work out for the best. I moved the fade into about halfway where the blue was, made sure everything kind of cut off at the same point as I kind of had some overlaps. So just doing some trimming here, getting rid of the ends, and I watched it through from the beginning and kind of picked up on what needed to be changed, and I realized I didn't particularly love the transition speed of the fade, so I moved this back to end at about the same place the wreath did. And sometimes it takes a hot second to finish loading, and I get all nervous that my computer's about to crash, but looked good. Here's where I realized it was super off-center, and I decided that it was already kind of too different from what the original looks like anyway, and I didn't really mind recentering it. So I popped it where it belonged, double checked everything, checked the fade, looks pretty good. And it definitely still looks as though it is kind of coming off the page into the digital world, and maybe not as authentically as I'd originally intended, but I do think it turned out decent. So once I was happy, all I had to do was go to produce and create the video. And that's pretty much how I did this whole thing. I exported it as an MP4 just because that I think it compresses it a little bit more than the WAV files, which is or WMV, I think. I don't actually know which old files I used to convert to, but I switched to MP4 at the beginning of this year. For some reason, maybe it's just me, but I think it does move faster. So here I'm just titling it and saving things, which gives me enough time to kind of ramble into my finishing thoughts here. And that's primarily going to be that all I had left to do was really add a song to it, and kept just like a little bit of a little extra part of that screenshot of the last thing there, the blue watercolor and the wreath, just kind of extended that a little bit to make it a full 10 seconds long. And overall, I think it turned out pretty good. Maybe not exactly the way that I'd hoped, and I'm certain that at some point in the future I'm going to come up with another idea or have some other things that I'm really going to love. And I'm going to want to change it again, probably at the beginning of next year. But with all that said, I think that this went decent. I'm excited to kind of take on a new little bit of branding for this year, and I'm excited that I have a little bit more of a live action vibe to this one as opposed to the strictly digital ones that I've done in the past. I think it's clear that a little bit more effort has gone into this one. So with all of that said, I wanted to thank you so much for watching. And if you like what you saw, I would absolutely love it if you were to like and subscribe, maybe even ring the bell. I don't know, I've never really asked anyone to do that before. I think I've maybe had one video where I've said ring the bell. But before I go off rambling a little too much, I'm going to pop my little version of the new intro that you'll be seeing starting next week. Right here at the end. And once again, just thank you. If you want to see more of what I do, feel free to come back again next Sunday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That is when I always upload every week, and I would love to see you then. Thank you so much, and hopefully I will see you then. How many times can I repeat that? Ugh, I am rambling. Bye!